Hello everyone, PJ Chen here. I'm an authorized Rhino 3D trainer. Thank you for tuning in for this free jewelry CAD design training. I'm excited to share with you my top 10 tips to do jewelry CAD design. So the goal of this free training today and the paid course of a Rhino 6 jewelry stone setting 3D modeling is to teach you how to apply the stone setting knowledge into your jewelry CAD model, even if you never physically set a stone before. So if you wanted to be a jewelry CAD designer and want to learn how to design the model practically for 3D printing and casting, this training is for you. I'm super excited to share my top 10 tips to do the jewelry CAD design. They are the principle for all levels of jewelry designer. Let's dive in. Jewelry CAD design tip number 1, metal thickness for the proper casting. Many beginners has no idea how thin their CAD model is until they get the first 3D model print and realize the printing cannot be cast or cannot be survived to cast. That's the number one mistake from all my beginning students, designers. In the jewelry industry, we use millimeter instead of using inch, and it may be confusing when you try to convert between those two units. The best way to learn the thickness is actually have the digital caliper with you. Before you are ready to send it out the files of 3D printing, measure the thickness of every part with the dimension tool in Rhino 3D and pull out your digital caliper to see what the physical thickness will be. It sounds simple, but many of my students didn't realize how thin a 0.2 millimeter is until they see the hair thick gap on their digital caliper. It takes some practice. Even an experienced CAD designer may have the same mistake about the thickness. I will also suggest you to send it out for a plastic 3D printing first, so you have something tangible in hand to do the adjustment. If you are in the United States, shipways.com is the website that I recommend. Use the fine detailed plastic material, and an average ring will cost you about $7 to $10. For the beginner, it is worth spend time and money on the prototype and make sure that your parts are working in the way you want before you cast them in the precious metal. There is an important for the beginning jewelry designer, and that will help you to gain more experience from digital to physical print. In general, you also want to add the thickness and the weight to the silver design compared to the gold design in the same design, because people feel it worth a lot more if they can feel the weight in silver. Jewelry CAD design tip number 2, understand how the stone is set. If you have done stone setting physically even just once, congratulations, you know how the stones are set and how you should design for the stone seat in CAD. If not, don't worry. I'll suggest you follow Brian Lewis at New Approach School for Jewelers, Alessandro School for Optical Diamond Setting, and GRS Training Center. They all have intensive stone setting training course, and you can find some video on YouTube from them. On top of that, my stone setting for CAD design course will teach you in depth on how different types of stone are set and how to build a proper 3D model for them. And I will address those details later on in the webinar. But back to tip number 2. Watching those videos and how the jeweler sit and set the stone will give you a clear idea of how you should design a seat for the stone in the CAD. I have a list of a YouTube video on the playlist. Those are the videos that I think are beneficial to watch, especially if you never set a stone before. To find a playlist, go to PJ Chen Design YouTube channel, click on the playlist, and scroll down. You will find a stone setting videos playlist. There are 40 plus stone setting video collection in there. If you are not familiar with stone setting terminology, you should starting with something simple and most common one like prong set, bezel set, and B set. And start those 3 types of setting in your CAD model until you get master on them and move on to the rest. I will also suggest you starting with the regular shaped stone like a round and oval and move on to the fancy cut with the V prong later on. Jewelry CAD design tip number 3, prong size for the stone setting. After you watch a few stone setting video and you kind of grasp an idea of how the stone is being seated and set into the metal, you wanted to start thinking about the aesthetics of the design. For example, if you have a 4mm round facet stone to do a 6-prong setting, each prong size is 1.5mm in diameter. The stone may be super secure once it is set, but people will focus on the prongs, which is a 6 polished shiny spot, more than the stone. In the fine jewelry design, we want to make sure that we expose the most stone possible, but secure the stone in place at the same time with the minimal metal. Metal plays the secondary role in the fine jewelry design to hold the stone in place, so try to minimize the metal on the top view without losing the security is the priority. Here is an example. When you make the rail under the girdle, make sure that the rail is smaller than the stone size, which will make your stone look bigger and brighter. Check out this comparison on the right. The same size of a stone looks smaller because the rail behind framed the stone on the top view. Jewelry CAD design tip number 4, pilot holes on CAD jewelry model. It is critical to have pilot hole in the jewelry CAD design. What is a pilot hole? It is the hole behind each stone on a piece of jewelry. There are 2 big reasons to have a pilot hole when you design jewelry in CAD. Number 1, the stone will look more sparkling if you have the hole for the lights to pass through, especially when you have the jewelry sit in the showcase. Number 2, it will be easier to clean behind the stone later on when the jewelry has been worn for a period of time. Pilot hole allow you to steam behind the stone to remove the grease and dirt. When we are cutting the pilot hole, we also need to be careful on the size of a hole and the length of a hole. If the hole is too narrow and too long, you may not have enough thickness for the investment to flow in the casting. It will result some sanding texture on where the holes are. Jewelry CAD design tip number 5, consider shrinkage rate. Shrinkage is one of the nightmares for the jewelry design beginner. When we design a CAD model, we tend to model exactly size C for the stone. However, during the 3D printing and casting process, the jewelry piece may shrink. When you get your casting metal back, you will realize the seats are too small for the stone size you have. Every 3D printer and casting company has a different tolerance on the shrinkage for their printer. Also, the shrinkage may vary depends on the temperature setting for the burnout process in the kiln. In the burnout process, the investment or the plaster will expand and contract, which result the casting piece smaller than the CAD model. Also, on the polishing process, you will physically remove the surface material on the buffer. I will suggest you to do a few tests with your vendor to see what is the shrinkage rate in every stage of the casting process, so you can adjust your model accordingly. However, if you ask me what is the general shrinkage rate that you should consider to start with, I will suggest you to have in between 4 to 5% from the CAD to the finished piece for the prototyping or one-of-a-kind piece. If you need to make a rubber mold for the mass production, you need to weigh in the rubber mold shrinkage rate as well. Some rubber mold shrink more than others. It is better to check with your casting vendor to find out the proper shrinkage rate for the rubber mold they use, so you can adjust your model accordingly. Jewelry CAD design tip number 6, design CAD model for two-tone jewelry. Two-tone jewelry has been really popular for a long time, and there are 2 ways to design two-tone jewelry for the production. Method number 1, cast in one piece and block some area for electrical plating. Here are the pros and cons of this method. The pros is saving money. You will save money on the labor costs and cast them in a separate piece. You can also change the plating solution later on if you want to carry different variation on your collection. However, the cons is plating itself as well. Plating is a micro-thin layer of the desired metal covered on the original surface. If they are earrings or brooch, the plating may last for a long time. If it is a ring, it will wear off much easier than a brooch and an earring, because the surface often rub on the skin or something else, and the jewelry will come back to your shop often to replating. It adds on the repair cost in the long run. If the piece that you design is a high-end jewelry, I will suggest you go on the second method. The method number 2. Cast parts separately and solder and laser weld together later on. Thanks for the technology with CAD, you can model two parts precisely and puzzle it back together. You may have the higher cost for the production, but you won't have to deal with the constantly plating later on, especially on the high-value custom piece. When the plating rub off, it won't evenly rubble, which won't be visually pleasant on a high-value piece. In addition, some material like pearl or soft gemstones such as peridot is not going to survive in the plating solution. You often need to remove or cover it when plating, or they may get damaged. Jewelry CAD design tip number 7, assemblage parts. This tip works for the two-tone jewelry casting in separate parts. It will be much easier to assemblage later on if they are lock-in key design in CAD. The key can be simply short pack and hold. The locking part doesn't have to be too big, too long, or too thick. It is pretty much a 0.5 or 0.8 millimeter sphere bowling unit on both sides of the assemblage parts. It will save you time and errors trying to align the part in place when soldering. Sometimes you can design a way that tension will hold the piece together. It will speed up the production time. Another advantage of the two parts or in multiple parts is you can polish them separately. Sometimes it's hard to polish some tight area like where the prong head connected to the ring shank. It will be much easier to polish the head itself and solder or weld on the shank later on. All you need to do is retouching on some of the area and get it back to the high shine. If you design a ring with the simple full prong head, I usually suggest you buy a die-struck ready-made head and solder to your design ring shank, instead of the 3D print and cast the head on the ring shank directly. The reason for doing this is number 1, the die-struck head is stronger than the casting piece by comparison. Number 2, it's less cleaning and polish work. Jewelry CAD design tip number 8. Well-organized folder and the layer in the CAD will speed up the working time. We all heard about that the client change their mind all the time, and that is true. You will, and I promise, you will have the client changing the design 10 times and told you that they like the very first one better at the end. When that moment comes, you will appreciate that you didn't delete or cover your very first CAD model. Here are some suggestions that I have for you on your CAD file organization. Number 1, never delete your curves in Rhino 3D. It will be much easier to rebuild any model if you have the original curve on it. If the curves are bothering you while you are working on your model, just create another layer and dump them and hide them. Number 2, always duplicate the layers and the object before you do the bowling. Sometimes the client may just want to move the stone sit a little bit higher or lower. If you bowling them together, you will need to rebuild them. Number 3, if the client has a multiple modification to the design, name your layer's name with the date that you communicate with the clients on the email. That will help you to go back to the conversation if there are any disagreement later on. Jewelry CAD design tip number 9, find out the client's budget before you build a CAD model. I know it is exciting to do jewelry CAD design, especially on your first freelance job, but it is really important to find out what is the client's budget before you jump on the design process. Communication is the key. Sometimes the client has no idea how much time and the material costs for the design of custom-made jewelry. They may not try to be cheap, but they just have no idea in this profession. Knowing someone's budget is important for you to avoid a free job or worse, to lose your time and money on the project. My suggestion is have a 30 minutes free consultation and explain the cost structure to your client. Even if they do not make a decision right away, it is okay. Everyone has a different financial situation. It may take some time for them to think about it. A successful project, it is a win-win situation for your jewelry design career and have happy returning clients. Your jewelry designer career will get easier with the time if you build it right. It is a referral business. Jewelry CAD design tip number 10. Again, understand the stone setting. I know I mentioned this earlier in the tip number 2, but there are some important design aspects I want to deliver here. Number 1, in fine jewelry design, stone plays the most important role than the metal. Metal is there to support the stone. The metal design needs to not only hold the stone in place, but it also needs to protect the stone. For example, some fancy cut stone has sharp corners and need to be designed with a different shape of the prong, like V-prongs, to not only protect but maintain the stone design on the corners. So understanding what option do you have for the prong will expand the design appearance for your stone. Number 2, the ideal wall for the pave setting or the B setting, we want to arrange the stone close to each other as close as possible. The reason is the stone will reflect the light to each other and make the stone more sparkly. But in the reality, the mini stone doesn't come in the exact size. You may order a batch of 1.2 millimeter stone, but they came in 1.22, 1.98, or 1.25 millimeter. We need to allow some space in our CAD model. I would suggest you to have a 0.1 to 0.2 millimeter space in between mini stones to allow some size differences. Number 3, there are some standard numbers you may want to use in your jewelry CAD model for stone setting, and I have a few lists here. First, try to keep the engagement ring shank in the minimums about 1.7 millimeter thick on the CAD model, which allow the shrinkage and polish material loss, and you will have a final ring shank is about 1.5 millimeter thick, which is a durable thickness for most women wearing comfortably. Second, if you have a rail design under the stone in the prong set head, make sure the rail distance is no smaller than 0.4 millimeter. You may get the part to stick together when print if the gap is smaller than 0.4 millimeter. And 0.4 millimeter is my magic number. I try to make my beads for B setting equal or larger than 0.4 millimeter. For the text design, the thickness is equal or larger than 0.4 millimeter. It also applies to many other situations in stone settings. In the prong set situation, we want the prong is longer than the table of the stone. You rather want it to be too long than too short for the stone setting. It will save you time that you don't need to weld extra wire on the tip of the prong if you find out they are too short after casting. So there you have my top 10 tips for jewelry CAD design. And I'm actually going to throw in a few more bonus tips for those who want to be a freelance jewelry CAD designer. Rhino 3D software by comparison to other 3D software is actually an affordable choice. A lot of people in the jewelry industry are using Rhino Go, Metric, or the new Metric Go. All of the software are specifically designed for jewelry 3D modeling, but they are also all Rhino plugin. The good thing is that since they are the plugin for the Rhino software, they all share the same commands as the Rhino has. Rhino 3D absolutely can do everything that you want to do in those jewelry specific software. All you need to have is the knowledge for the stone setting. I have a proof with over 170 videos on my PJ Chen Design YouTube channel that cover various topics related all levels of jewelry CAD design, but just using Rhino 3D only. Taking action to get your first freelance project may sound scary, but I'm here to help you. Here's my suggestion to prepare you for your jewelry freelance career. CAD design freelance tip number 1 is to master your skill. Follow my YouTube tutorials and alter the design to your own. Create some image from the CAD to the rendering. You can change the stone size and the shape and also change the thickness on the metal design. Start to create some awesome image from the CAD to the rendering. No one is going to hire over someone else if they can model better than yours. And this is why I create the stone setting for jewelry CAD design course. Proper design for the stone seat and placement is the key to make your jewelry 3D model stand out from the crowd. CAD design freelancer tip number 2 is the market yourself. Even if you don't feel confident in your skill level yet, you have to put your work out there. Use social media to get eyeballs, because the more eyeballs that seeing your image, the greater your chance are that someone with the jewelry design needs will want to hire you. Without fail, every time I post a new video on the YouTube or the image of my work process on the social media, I get more job offered. Make sure that you separate your public and private social media. The easier people can Google you on your public profile and find the likes that you have, the better to gain people's trust in your CAD design skill. CAD design freelancer tip number 3 is to build a portfolio. Create a digital portfolio that is less than 5 MB in a PDF file, which showcases your CAD design work. When you apply for the freelance job, attach this PDF file. You don't need to have tons of work, just 10 to 15 good ones to start with is good enough. You want to cover various work from simple to complex form and proper stone seat for various type of stone. CAD design freelance tip number 4 is building a relationship. The client's feedback is super important. Like when you shop online, you want to buy the product that has a 5-star review than 1 star. You always ask the clients for the positive review after you finish the project. It takes time to accumulate it, but it will get easier, I promise. I also have a lot of returning clients now that I spent less time to find new clients. Follow the 4 bonus tip that I have here and apply for your freelance job on the Upworks.com. You are welcome to use my Upwork profile as a reference to build your own. And building the right jewelry CAD model with the proper stone setting knowledge will bring you the satisfied client, especially when everything 3D printing and stone setting correctly. So now I want to dive into stone setting for jewelry CAD design course. For those of you interested in learning more beyond just a free training, here's a look of what I'm including in the paid course. I have 60 videos breaking down into 12 chapters. First, stone setting concept. Second, how to model different type of stone. Third, understand gem cutter and pilot holes in the detail. Then different type of stone setting. Number 5, 3D printing guideline for each type of setting. In the first section, I would like to walk you through the concept of a stone setting by illustrating the stone profile and explain how the stone is actually being held in place. Having a correct stone setting terminology is important when communicating with your clients. Not only do we discuss the facet stone, but we also including the cabochon and irregular shaped stone. In the second section, I will show you how to model different type of stone, including the regular round and oval facet stone, and also the fancy cut like pear and emerald cut stone. The course is including the top 9 most used facet stone model for you to download, but knowing how to build a stone model is important in case that you're running into a project that has a unique cut stone. So you will know how to build a stone model in order to build the jewelry model for it. This focus also including how to build a regular and irregular cabochon stone. In the following section, I will show you how to design a gem cutter to seat the stone and the proper size of the pilot holes behind the different type of stone in detail. Section 4 is the main focus for 3D modeling on the different type of stone setting for bezel set, prong set, B setting, pavé setting, channel set, and flush set. In addition, I will also discuss how to design the setting for the halo and the cluster style of jewelry. Finally, the goal of a stone setting 3D modeling course is to design the jewelry for 3D printing and production. The detail on 3D printing, standards, and how to avoid errors are discussed throughout the course, and the course is in a systematic order for both beginner designer and the experienced jeweler who wanted to switch your work from the hand carving wax to the CAD and 3D printing using Rhino 3D program. Remember, knowing how to model stone setting properly in CAD will separate you from other CAD designers. That is for my top 10 tips for jewelry CAD design. I hope this training is giving you a great insight on jewelry CAD design specific in stone setting 3D modeling with the Rhino 3D. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you for tuning in, and if you have further questions, please let me know.